My name is Joy, and I will never forget that evening. The sun was almost gone when I walked into our compound, balancing a tray of sliced pawpaw on my head. Our small old house with its leaking brown zinc roof looked the same as ever, but something felt off. A group of women stood on the veranda, whispering. Their faces were twisted in pity. Mama Uju, the neighborhood gossip, had her hands over her mouth as if she was holding back tears. I frowned, waiting happen, but nobody answered. My heart pounded as I pushed past them and stepped into the house. And then I saw her, my beloved grandmother, lay still on the bed, her mouth slightly open as if she had been trying to speak but couldn't. The neatly folded wrapper that had once been her favorite shoe lay by her side, and her hands rested swiftly on her chest. My legs gave way, my vision blurred. I could hear low murmurs outside. This girl is now an orphan. No. Who will take care of her? Maybe her mama will come back for her now. That last comment jolted me. My mother? The very woman who had abandoned me in this village like a forgotten market bag. The woman I had never known. Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to cry in front of all of these villagers. Instead, I ran to the backyard, squatting near the cassava stems and hugging myself tightly. Every part of me trembled. My grandmother was gone, and with her was the only life I had ever known. After a hasty, almost indifferent burial that wasn't enough money for a big ceremony, the villagers tricked away, leaving me alone with my grief. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay on the bamboo mat in the dim light of my small room, staring at the ceiling, thinking of all my secrets my grandmother never revealed. About my mother, I needed answers. Determined, I got up and rummaged through her wooden trunk, the one she always kept locked. The key, hidden in the corner of my mouth, trembled in my hand as I turned it. Inside, I found neatly folded clothes, a few naira notes, and at the very bottom, a small dusty box. I opened it. Inside were old photographs of a young woman. She looked just like me. Same round eyes, full lips, and a stubborn set of her chin. I picked up one photo. On the back scrolled writing, Chinwe, 1996. Chinwe. My heart pounded as I unfolded the letter tucked behind the pictures. The papers was old and yellow, and my grandmother's shaky handwriting filled the page. My daughter, if you ever find this letter, it means I am gone. I wanted to tell you the truth, but I was afraid of how you would take it. The woman in this picture is your mother, Chinwe. She left you in my care many years ago, and she never came back. I don't know why. Maybe it's time for you to find out. I read the letter over and over, feeling my chest tighten with every word. I, Joy, had spent my whole life wondering why my mother abandoned me, why she never read or sent for me. Now I had a clue. Her name was Chinwe, and I was going to find her. The next morning, I saw the last of my pawpaw, packed my few clothes into a nylon bag, and took the small sum of money my grandmother had hidden in the trunk. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get me to Enugu. Mama Uju caught me on the way to the motor park and grabbed my hands. Where you dey go? I dey go find my mama, I replied, my voice firm despite the storm inside me. She looked at me as if I had lost my mind. Your mama? The same woman wey abandon you since you small. You sure say she go wan see you. I pulled my arm away. I no sabi, but I go find out. The journey to Enugu was rough. The bus smelled of sweat and engine oil, and the driver treated the road like his personal racetrack. By the time I reached the city, my body ached from the hours of crumpled travel, but I didn't care. Enugu was noisy, cars honked incessantly, and people moved with determined urgency. The air smelled different here, like smoke and fried akara. I clenched my bag tightly and tried to remember the address scribbled on one of the photos. After asking around, I finally found the street. The house that was my destination was huge, painted white with a tall black gate. It looked like a place for rich people. I took a deep breath and knocked. A woman opened the gate. I recognized her instantly. She was older, impeccably dressed, and it was her, my mother. Her eyes widened in shock. "Who are you?" My throat went dry as I replied, "I be your daughter, Mama. My name is Joy." There was silence. She stared at me as if I were a ghost from a nightmare, then shook her head. "No, my daughter is inside. You must be mistaken." The words hit me like a slap. I turned just in time to see a young girl about my age, a little bit younger, approach the doorway. She bore a striking resemblance to my mother. Even to me, my mother had another daughter, and she acted as if I didn't exist at all. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Me, Joy, standing outside the gate, dusty from the travel, and my mother Chin were dressed like a city madam looking at me as if I was an intruder. The other girl, her daughter, stood at the doorway confused. She looked polished, clean, and expensive. Me? I probably looked like something that crawled out of a gutter. I swallowed hard and repeated, "I said I be your daughter, Mama. My name na Joy." She shook her head again, stepping back as though I carried a contagious disease. "No, my daughter is inside. Now please leave." I felt a hot surge of anger rising in my chest. "You won't tell me say you don't sabi your own daughter?" "Lower your voice," she hissed, glancing around nervously. "I don't know you." Her words cut through like a knife. I laughed, a shaky, bitter laugh. "Eh? You don't sabi me, but you sabi drop me from my grandmother's hand like abandoned meat, ba?" She winced. That remark, though rough, seemed to touch her deep inside. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. "You know what? No wahala. I don't hear you. I don't need anything from you. I just want to see the woman wey born me. My grandmama been tell me before she died that your name be Chinwe. You be my mama." She closed her eyes for a moment, as if in pain, then shook her head. "I am sorry. You have the wrong person." Before I could say another word, the gate slammed shut in my face. Shame and rejection weighed heavily as I stood there. I could still feel the sitting of her dismissal, the way she looked at me like I was nothing. I wiped my nose and turned away. I didn't know where I was headed, but I refused to cry in front of that grand house that had just erased me from its memory. I wandered the busy streets for hours, clutching my small bag tightly. Enugu was loud and indifferent. No one cared about a village girl with nowhere to go. I thought about going back home, but home was now an empty house with only a grave behind it. Night fell quickly. I found myself in a market area, sitting on a cold bench, hungry and exhausted. My money was nearly gone. Most had been spent on the transport. I hissed and kicked a stone at my feet. Almost in my life. "Why you dey talk to yourself?" a rough voice asked. I turned to see a girl in a one shot with a makeshift wrapper sitting beside me, picking her teeth. Her face marked by the hardship of life. was both fierce and kind. I eyed her. You no go understand. She chuckled, tried me. For reasons I couldn't fully explain, I started telling her everything about my grandmother, the mysterious boss, and my long journey to Enugu. And that devastating moment when my own mother denied me like a forgotten relic. She whistled when I finished. It be like film trick. So what you will come do now? I shrugged. I don't know. She studied me for a moment. You get where you go sleep? I hesitated. No. She stretched her arms and yawned. Oya, follow me, I feel help you small. Desperation overcame me, and I followed her. Her name was Binta. She lived in a crumbled, bustling apartment with 5 other girls. The room was hot, small, and reeked of cheap perfume and sweat, but it was better than sleeping on the streets. Binta shared with little food she had with me. She first said, sleep first. She said gently, tomorrow we go find work for you. I was exhausted to even argue. I stayed with Binta and her roommates for a few days, helping them run a small business selling roasted plantain and groundnuts. It wasn't much, but at least I wasn't hungry. Still, my mind was restless. I couldn't stop asking, why did my mother abandon me? Why did she act as if I didn't exist? I needed answers. One evening, I decided to return to her house, this time without knocking. I hid near the gate and waited. It wasn't long before a car pulled up. A man stepped out, a big, important-looking man. He opened the car door, and my mother stepped out, laughing softly. My stomach twisted. There was she, looking happy and normal, completely different from the woman who had once abandoned me. Gritting my teeth, I stepped out of the shadows and called, Mama! She froze. The woman behind her frowned. Who is this? I folded my arms and said, ask your wife now. My mother grabbed my arms and dragged me outside. What are you doing here? She hissed. I yanked my arm free. I won't hear the truth. Her face crumbled. For the first time, I saw real pain, fear, and regret in her eyes. She glanced at her husband, who was silently watching, then whispered, meet me behind the church on Eze Street tomorrow night. I will tell you everything. Before I could protest, she rushed inside, leaving me standing there with more questions than answers. The next night, I waited behind the old church under a dim street light. My mother arrived, her face drawn in the shadows of regret. She didn't waste any time. I never wanted to leave you, she began in a shaky voice. But something happened to me. I frowned. What was it? She took a deep breath. I was raped. My breath caught in my throat. She continued, her voice barely above a whisper. I was young and foolish. I fell for the wrong man. One wicked beyond measure. He and his friends, they took me, beat me, and left me for the dead. They hung me from a tree, but I didn't die. Someone found me and saved me, but by then, I was already pregnant. A cold chill ran down my spine. You were that child, she said. Her eyes filled with unbearable pain. I hated myself for surviving, and I hated you because you were the living proof of that night. Tears slipped down my face, yet it did not wipe them away. I tried to love you, she went on, her voice cracking, but every time I look at you, I saw them. I saw the terrible nights, so I left you with my own mother and I ran. I ran to build my life, thinking I could forget. Silence fell between us. You think, say I know so far? I demanded, my voice breaking. You think say I no ask myself every day why my own mama no wants me? She covered her face. I am sorry. I clenched my fist. Anger and plaint swelling inside me. And me, waiting I be. She reached for me, but I stepped back. No touch me, I beg. Her eyes pleaded, what do you want from me? All I wanted was a mother. A loving figure who wouldn't vanish when things were tough. But it was late. I wiped my face roughly. Nothing. I just wanted to know why, and now I do. Then I turned and walked away. She didn't call me. She didn't try to stop me. And in that moment, I realized I had always been the daughter she wished had never existed. Days turned into long, restless nights. After that painful encounter behind the church, Joy, I couldn't shake the image of my mother's tear-stained face of the echoes of her confession. Every night, I lay awake on the worn-out mat in the cheap boarding house in Enugu, haunted by the memories of my village and the loss of my beloved grandmother. The city's relentless noise only deepened the quiet sorrow in my heart. During the day, I wandered Enugu's busy streets, trying to outrun my painful memories amid the crowded markets and aroma of sizzling akara. I couldn't help but wonder, could I truly forgive my mother? The anger and betrayal were heavy, yet a deep aching part of me still longed for the love of a mother. I knew that if I continued to harbor this bitterness, I did never find peace. One morning, as I sat in the busy corner of the local market, I bumped into Binta again. The rough-edged girl who had taken me into her house weeks earlier. She noticed my troubled expression immediately. Joy, I beg you don't tire for this one, she said in her warm pidgin, her eyes twinkling with mischief, yet filled with genuine concern. Wetin dey worry you so much? I tried to smile weakly. You ever wonder, say sometimes, the past just dey follow us like a stubborn shadow. I left my mama behind, but I still dey feel say maybe I need to see her again. Binta's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. You go try? The carry road no easy, my sister, but if na healing you want, sometimes you gats face the storm. That night, under the neon lights and the ceaseless hum of the city, I made a decision. I will return to the place where it all began, the old church on the streets, where my mother and I shared our painful truth. I needed answers. Perhaps facing the past could begin to heal. After a while, my mother came to meet me there. For a long silent minute, we simply sat there in the empty churchyard. Then she spoke in a trembling voice. I know I hurt you. I know I left you alone in the dark place. Every day since I have carried the weight of my decision, I couldn't hold back any longer. How can you say that when you abandoned me? How can you just vanish and leave me to grow up without your love? I demanded, my voice shaking with pent-up emotion. She sank onto the cold stone steps beside me and looked at me with eyes filled with regret. I was terrified, Joy. I was scared of the memories of the monstrous things I went through. I thought if I left the past, it would be erased. But every time I saw you, I saw the night returning. Her confession cut deep. I remember the painful details she had shared that night behind the church, the unspeakable horrors of her past, the abuse, the shame, and the desperate flight from it all. I spent my life running from the ghosts, Mama, I whispered, and every time I looked at you, I saw my own shame. I hesitated. Trust had been shattered like a broken glass. Mama, you left me with a promise in form of a box, a letter, and the memories of my grandmother, who loved me dearly. I have spent so long trying to fill the void, Can you really fix something that has been broken for long? Her eye glistered with unshed tears. I can't erase the past, and I won't pretend it's easy. But I want to start by telling you everything. The truth about my life. My mistakes at the moment I tried to laugh in the face of tragedy. I wrote it all down in a journal, in a mix of a proper English and our local pidgin, so you can see both sides of me. The woman who hurt me and the woman who still believes in laughter, even when tears fall. I dey cry like rain, blood dey mix with my tears. I don't know if I go survive that night, but stubborn soul inside me tell me say, no be today you go let darkness win. So I fought. I fought until I no fit cry again. Immediately, my mother took me into a deep embrace and we hugged and reconciled. Hey besties, we have come to the end of this very interesting story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to your loved ones. Let me know your thoughts about the story. Do you think Chinwe did the right thing by leaving her daughter in the village to grow up with her mother? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Till I come your way next time. Bye.